I mean, you sit there and read the Bible. If you want a book of laws, what do? You read the Bible. What's it full of? It's full of rights and it's full of wrongs.
Justice.
It's justice. Yeah. There's so much stuff in that book.
The Stand. Welcome back. This is The Stand with Corban Dolan. I'm joined today by a very amazing man named Mark Denesha. Thank you, sir, so much for coming. I really appreciate you coming all the way to Nashville and coming to be part of this program. I'm super excited to hear some of your story.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here with you, Corban.
Well, thank you.
It really is.
Thank you so much. Well, before we get started today, I'd like to share a verse out of Psalm 46, which speaks of the strength and the refuge that God is to each of us. And it says very simply, "For God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." And so as we communicate and speak to a little bit about your background actually as a police officer,
okay,
and as a state trooper, we'll keep in mind that the Lord is our strength and refuge. But I'd love to hear as we open up just some of your background. You know, you were a state trooper up in the state of New York.
Yes.
And so you had you grown up in the upper part of New York.
Way upstate.
Way upstate,
Just
near
Canada.
Near Canada. Yes.
Yeah,
so tell me a little bit about your upbringing and how that was, in such a really rugged climate. You know, you were you'd grown up in the outdoors and doing a lot of really cool things as a young man. So would you enlighten me, share a little bit about that?
I grew up in upstate New York, a very small town, very small town, very small school. School had 600 kids, kindergarten through 12. So my father ran the local funeral home.
I didn't know that.
Yes, he did.
Wow.
And he was also, he wore many hats. He was a justice of the peace.
Wow.
For a period of time. So with that, there would, the local law enforcement, the troopers, the sheriff would bring people to visit my dad. And visit, I mean, if they had been arrested for charges. And I grew, I became involved in my interest in becoming, a member of law enforcement, particularly a state trooper, back when I was just a young child.
So you were exposed to law and the establishment of justice from a very young age.
That's right. And I've always taught the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, and there's consequences for for.
And that was a really strong conviction from a young age, as a young person. That was something you felt. We were talking off camera last night, and you shared some of the stories as a young person, just of the conviction that you had to see justice brought out. And when you saw injustice happen, or where you saw something evil, you felt you felt convicted to do something. You felt like you wanted to bring the truth and bring justice. And I know I'd love to hear some of those stories as a young man specifically. You mentioned last night that you were a young trooper and you were just beginning in the stages of being in law enforcement. And you guys, I guess you went to a restaurant or something. And
there's a lot of things you learn as you age. And when we first become a member of an organization like that, you're always learning. You're cutting your teeth, so you're going to observe people and how different people do different things. They're going to teach you in the academy how things are supposed to be done by the book-wise, and then you have to get out in the field and start working with people,
right?
And learning how to treat people, how to talk to people, how to deal with people. Community orientation. You have to go out in the community and learn about your community. A lot of police officers come from the communities in which they're going to go back and work in. So they already know that. But you have to. Community policing is a big part of
correct
being a police officer.
Well, I could see that it was always something that you really felt called to as a young man. And you had originally been in the state of New York. You had been a trooper there for a long time. Now, before we go on to some of your later story, do you feel as though there was any specific event that stood out where you really felt like this was a reckoning time, where you really felt like this was a life calling and that this was something you were meant to pursue as a young person?
It's something that I always wanted to do. I had it in my heart from a young child, and there were people that they had some doubt that you could do this, and as far as working for the state, I have some strong allegiance to the New York State Police. I spent some time there. So working as a road trooper, as an investigator, I also worked in a specialty unit, well assigned to investigations also. So there were a lot of things that stand out. There's a lot of things that I remember dealing with some certain cases.
You had also mentioned earlier that you had also been involved in investigations and bringing drugs off of the streets,
Yes.
getting a lot of those dealers in the right Department of Justice, and so I know Amy always jokes about how you used to guess wear a lot of undercover clothing, and so that was a big part of what you did as a young man. So
that was fun, and it was fun. We had fun doing the job. We had fun going after the bad guys. We had fun arresting the bad guys, and you have to keep your target in the focus. Remember what you're doing and why we're doing this is because it's good and bad. It's good and evil. It's right and wrong, and we're here to bring right where it's supposed to be, and do away with the evil.
How do you feel about current day justice and our current policing force today in America?
There's a lot of politicizing going on of the way the policing is done. There's a lot of things that have happened. However, we have to remain focused that most of the police officers that are out there are good. They're doing a good job. They have
good intentions.
They have good intentions. We have to maintain the training protocols. We have to make sure that everybody gets all the schooling that they need. We have to teach these young guys how to deal with the public, how to talk to people. How to be team players, how to, if they see something going on amongst the ranks, the people that they're working with, even if they don't want to, if somebody's stepping out of line doing something that they don't think is right, they have to bring that to somebody's attention. When I say somebody, I mean a superior.
Right, in the chain of command.
In the chain of command.
And I mentioned this last night in the truck ride with you, but you felt as though communication was one of the biggest values that officers today need to be really fluent in, and be able to express, what are the expectations of a citizen and an encounter and an engagement, and how to best diffuse any complications therein. But you had obviously been in New York, and then you had eventually you had met your amazing wife, Amy. You had met her, and you guys moved down to Florida with your daughter. And you eventually had taken the role of being a on-site police officer at a school near your home. Would you tell me a little bit about how that occupation may have impacted you?
Well, we moved down from New York, and I still couldn't cut the ties from being, involved in law enforcement. Right. So I was able to get a job with the sheriff's department in Florida, and which eventually led to a position as a school resource officer. So my first few years as a SRO were at an elementary school, kindergarten through 5th grade. So. Not a lot going on.
Not a lot of shady dealings in the parking lot, huh?
more issues going on, dealing with parents that are upset, and but there were a few things here and there.
Sure.
And then I enjoyed that time making connections with the children and letting these children know that as a police officer, we're your friends. We're not your enemy.
Right.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of us. And I can tell you that there's so many times that I have been, when I was in uniform on the road, be in a restaurant, be in a public place, and you see a parent with a child, and the parent would tell the child, if you don't behave, I'm going to have that police officer take you to jail.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, it is. And I've heard that I don't know how many times.
Wow.
But I would always respond to that by going over and engaging the child and talking to the child and telling the child that the police aren't going to take them to jail.
Right, the police are their friends.
Yes,
and,
just because
you can trust, yeah.
your mom or dad are upset with you, we're not just going to come and take you to jail. We're your
Right.
friend. We're the person that you have to come
Right.
to
And-
if you have a problem.
And should be able to trust,
Yes.
right? And I think it's interesting to see the need for infrastructure to protect the officer's integrity. We see a lot of you mentioned last night that you have good cops, you have bad cops, you have good people, you have bad people, but there should be really an infrastructure that is protecting the integrity of officers' character and their motives, and that's something that every officer should be in the force for the right reasons.
Yes, for the right reasons, and it's to serve justice. And we have the implementation of body-worn cameras now,
Right.
which I think they're a great thing, and I wish they would have came out with them a long time ago because everything is documented. You wear it on your chest, and the whole encounter with whoever you're dealing with
Right.
is
Is
recorded.
documented.
Because in the age that we're living in, we have people that are out attempting to have an encounter with law enforcement, and they are recording, and they're trying to
Provoke.
get a law enforcement officer to do something that's that they're trying to push their buttons and get them to overreact and do
Right,
something.
just to see something on the internet, right?
Yes, yeah, because they want clicks for views, and
Sure.
that's what it is.
Yeah,
So,
and that comes back to the integrity of an officer's stance as a keeper of the peace, and just the role of being a protector. And you mentioned we just spoke about how there's an intention to really keep to degrade sometimes a officer's view toward the public, and we see we look back on the recent event of May 25th in 2020, the George Floyd riots, and we see a lot of the agenda that was used to really demoralize a officer's standing within the culture. I'd love to hear some of your perspective on what was right and what was wrong. And again, we talked about this off camera, but I really think it's important to tell our viewers what was done correctly and what could have been handled differently.
It's there's lots of things that were done wrong, in my opinion. There's when we have trainings, there's certain things that they teach you not to do. There's things that they teach you to do. So one of the things, we try not to obstruct people's airways and choke them. And unfortunately, that was something that occurred the day with George Floyd. And we also had some officers that were there that were observing and didn't intervene, which they should have intervened. But Derek Chauvin, he was an experienced guy. Sometimes there's a culture in law enforcement that will. Some guys tend to be a little aggressive and
Sure, they
and
get
how
the
they
adrenaline
handle with
rush.
people, how they
Yeah.
deal with people, and when it's much better to try at first to communicate with the person, to talk to that person, to try to get them to do what you want them to do by talking to them.
Right.
Okay, and then if it comes to the point where that's not working, you have to take it to a next step. So we have levels of escalation. So they were familiar with this subject. They were familiar with his habits and what he was involved in and what he had done. And so, I mean, you get somebody, you get somebody restrained, you get them up off the ground, you put them in the car, you take them where you got to go.
Right.
There's,
You get it over as quickly as possible.
You get it over as quickly as possible. You don't want to remain on a scene like that with a bunch of people coming in and drawing the crowd.
Right.
And then, yeah, we all know the results of what happened.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's important to acknowledge that while people have mistakes, they make imperfect decisions. It's important to recognize that officers are they have the role of keepers of the peace, and we should respect that authority. And anyone who subverts that is subject to that escalation.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
And that's why we have internal affairs units that are looking for people and keeping track of the guys that are working, that are doing the job, that aren't doing what they're supposed to do.
Right. Right.
And one of the things with we'll go way back to Rodney King, which was the first evidence that we had of any video recording of police officers engaged in an incident like this.
Right.
And that was a long time ago.
Right.
But that brought forth, as a result of that, there were many things that happened afterwards that were racially motivated. So, that being said, when it's not, the police department has to do the job of policing their own and making sure that they educate their officers on how to deal with people that are being combative or non-compliant or provoking, and we have to have thicker skin. We have to have thicker skin and be able to deal with this.
Yes, and you see some of the intentions of more progressive ideologies on our military, or yes, even on the defunding of police. I recall that there were several incidents several years ago where people were left without defense. In certain more progressive states, there were people left without any form of policing protection, and that leads us to really you as a father. You are a husband and a father to a really beautiful family, and you're a protector, and you believe in the Second Amendment, and you believe in defending what you've been given as the headship of as a dad and as a man. And so how do you feel about this next generation that is coming up? I mean, we see a lot of passivity amongst young men, and that's something that I'm very convicted about, to see that my generation is willing to step up and do something about the passivity that men are engaging in daily, that they're not stepping up to the role of being a protector or a father. They're not engaging that God-given headship and leadership that they've been called to. And so how do you feel, and what do you think on that topic? How can we engage the next generation more effectively and teach them the principles that that you hold very closely to you?
And that's it. You have to teach them. You have to teach them to be the gatekeeper. To protect their family. We know that there's evil that lurks around many corners, everywhere we go, out in the public, on the internet, in books we read, and it's important as a parent to know what's going on in the world, to be able to steer our kids in the right direction, to keep them
Grounded.
safe, keep them grounded, give them the Bible. I mean, you sit there and read the Bible. If you want a book of laws, what do? You read the Bible. What's it full of? It's full of rights and it's full of wrongs.
Justice.
It's justice. Yeah. There's so much stuff in that book that it's. I wish I knew everything that was in that, And I mean, that's where the rules are. So you've got right and wrong, good and evil. What else? I mean, how do you differentiate that?
There's not much confusion, is there?
No,
right?
There's no confusion. It's either right or it's wrong. And we have laws that are written that tell you this is the way it is. But we have had, litigation and lawyers who will come in and they will argue these points when they're just looking for loopholes to find a way for bad people to get away with evils that they have done. And you instill doubt in the mind of a juror, and you get a bad guy that's going to walk away.
Right, and that's the integrity of our judicial system, and
Yes.
and I think the integrity is so important to maintain, and I believe firmly that God's word is an essential and necessary part of that. And once we remove the necessity and the truth found in the Bible, we remove the morality and the character of our culture. And the Bible has been and will always be the golden standard for character and morality and what's right and wrong. And so we need more men like yourself, Mr. Mark. We need more people like you who are willing to step up and be the father and be the daily representation of what justice and strength and character looks like. And I know that you're so well respected. I just wanted to acknowledge that people respect you, and that you hold a stance of character that I think few people they would wish they had. And so thank you so much for sharing this today. And
Thank you for everything that you're doing, Corban.
Thank you. And
you're a fine young man.
Thank you. Means a lot. But thank you, Mr. Mark. Well, this has been The Stand with Corban Dolan, and we'll see you guys next time.
The Stand.